Welcome back to another exciting episode of Defeating the Darkness, True Crime Stories with Downtown Heather Brown, and you are in for a good one. Today, we have one of my favorite friends. I say that about all of them, but they're all my favorite. I should have just named the podcast My Favorite Friends because I have some really amazing friends, and you're one of them. Today, we have with us Swoop from Swoopsworld. And how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
It's great to see you, and it's wonderful to be here.
It's been a long time. I haven't seen you since, I think, your wedding.
No. You saw me at my leaving the state party.
Oh, right?
Which was, just like 6 months later or something like that.
Yes, you left the state. So I did see you. You're right. God, my memory's fading. I can't imagine why.
You're younger than me. You should be able to hold on better than me.
I know. I should be able to hold on better, but I can't. So, so I am so excited to have you here today. I know that you flew in not just for my show, but I'm going to say it's just for the show. You came all the way from Oklahoma just to come on to my podcast because you actually had me on your podcast, which I didn't even know was a podcast. It was back before we knew what podcasts were. You had me on your podcast, which was called Swoopsworld.
Swoopsworld. We started in 2009, and we ran consistently till 2018, about there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was very successful?
It was, yes, I will say it was very successful.
It was. And people are still asking you to start it back up because it's no longer in existence, right?
Well, yeah, not really. I mean, every once in a while I'll do a show and something piques my interest, or, I've had a few friends that have written books, so they, help them promote their books, because I still have all my socials, and we still have people listening to it because I see the statistics every week.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so I gotta plug that first, and then we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna deep dive into Swoopsworld in 1 second. But before that, where could people listen to this amazing podcast?
You can still find episodes, I believe, on iHeart. There's an app out there called Blueberry, and you can always go to swoopsworld.com and find it.
Did you hear that? Swoopsworld.com. And
I think there might still be some episodes up on Apple. It was at Apple, iHeart. We had a YouTube page. We had clips, so you can still find it out there.
We can find you.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So let's talk about how we met, because it was not on Swoopsworld that we met.
No, I think you were a young college student when we met.
I was going to college at Loyola Marymount.
Yes.
Back in the 1900s. It was a long time ago. And we met at a bar.
Yes, we did.
I have a feeling like a lot of these podcast episodes are going to start. And we met at a bar. We met at a bar. And I was not actually of age.
Well, I didn't know that.
Allegedly.
But can you tell them what story? So,
yeah, go for it.
It was interesting because we'd see you there and we'd chat with you and we'd drink, and I'd say at least a year. And you walk in one day and you guys are buying me drinks because today's my birthday. And I said, oh, really? How old are you? You go, 21. I said, you've been drinking here for at least a year.
Well, and what y'all don't know is the funny part of that is Keith is a former LAPD officer, detective at the time, I believe. I was
either a detective or soon to be a detective.
Soon to be a detective when we met long ago. Yeah, so he was working as a police officer for LAPD, along with
so was everybody else I was hanging out with.
all the people that I was drinking with. And so when I rolled up and told y'all you had to buy me drinks for my 21st birthday, you're like, what?
That is true.
Yes, I remember that. True story. So that was a good time. So we met like 35 years ago, a long time ago. So you've known me longer than most people I know here in California.
I've known you longer than most of the people I've been married to.
Yeah. And how many of those are there? There's a few. There's a few.
Yeah.
They were all good though. Good. All good, right?
Yeah.
So, we met gosh, 1989, I think it was.
Well, you were still working at the restaurant.
Nichols Restaurant, Marina Del Rey.
Yeah, and
yes.
you had not gone to law school yet.
No.
So
I was a student
Yeah.
and a waitress, and I was going to Brennan's.
Well, we knew great things were going to happen with you way back then.
Oh, did you
Yes.
now? So we meet in this bar, and you were with your then partner. I won't name any names.
Let's just call it. Come on with a name.
Dave.
Dave. That'll work.
We'll just call him Dave.
Let's call him Dave.
That was my dad's name. We'll go with that.
All right.
Probably as much trouble as my father was. But and Dave was. How do we describe Dave?
Well, he had a nickname they called him Cowboy. And see how he wore cowboy boots every day at work. He was from Oklahoma.
Oh my God, I have my cowboy boots
Yes,
on.
there you go.
In honor. Ooh, that's in honor of you. What we call him, Dave.
Yeah.
That's in honor of you, Dave.
And yeah, he was. You know what? He's a fun guy. He's still a good friend. I visit him when I come to California.
He's a wonderful guy. He's a great guy. But he's not exactly like. I don't know what the word is.
A social butterfly?
He's not a social butterfly. He's a very calm, quiet, solemn man.
Yes.
Yes. And I had a huge crush on Dave when I was young, pub with daddy issues. And I was really into Dave. And so I remember one night that your famous words to me, this is terrible. I can't believe I'm even talking about this. But we went back to my house.
Yes.
Me, you, and Dave.
Yeah, we did.
And we were partying at my house after the bar. And I lived in an apartment with this crazy girl. She was
You
nuts.
had all these like wigs and things hanging. I go, what's all that? And you go, well, that's my roommates. And I'm looking around. Okay.
Yeah, you were like, there were big trash bags. She was a big recycler back then. And so there were a lot of trash bags filled with stuff. And you were like, what is happening here? Are those like body parts? And you were like the police officer, and you came out and you started questioning me. And I remember you left.
I had to get going. And I think my parting words to you are, if you hatchet murder my buddy, I know where you live.
Yes, he threatened me not to hatchet murder his buddy. So I did not murder your buddy, and we became fast friends ever since then. And then, so going back to this, so you were an LAPD detective. Mm-hmm. And how long were you on LAPD?
About 21 years.
Okay. And what type of assignments did you work?
I worked a ton of assignments. I worked a lot of specialized units, patrol, beach detail, gangs, narcotics.
What'd you do on the beach detail? Like just look for I don't know, people selling.
I rode a bike and took pictures with tourists is what I mostly enjoyed. But
it was the greatest assignment of your life.
It was a great assignment. That was that year was the year the Olympics were in Los Angeles, the '84 Olympics. So that summer, everything picked up. I mean, it was always a busy beach, but everything picked up because all the tourists were coming to town and whatnot. And so, there weren't a lot of places where people were coming from that had police officers riding bikes in shorts and polo shirts working the beach. And so we'd get stopped and
was this in Venice?
Yeah, take pictures and
oh, you were having a good old time.
Take more pictures and we wrote a few infractions and that kind of stuff. But it was a great job. You know what? It was one of the I had a lot of good assignments, but it was one of the better assignments I had. And I remember my sergeant at the time, he said, enjoy this time, because I was young. I think I only had a couple years on the job then, and he said, enjoy this time because you're going to look back at this as one of the best assignments you ever had. And it really was. Was
there a party you was like, I want to be out there like hunting down bad guys?
I love the beach.
You're like, God, I wish I had that for my
bad guys wander to the beach every once in a while.
You never know, right? And you're going to be there to catch them when they do.
Yeah, but the view at the beach is really, really nice.
Yeah, I bet it is. You came home from a hard day and you're like, oh, I'm exhausted. I had to take like 18 pictures today.
Yeah, it's good. It's with Facebook and stuff now. You reconnect with people, and I see a couple of friends I have that work the beach. Not when I did, but they'll post pictures of them on the beach back in the '80s or late '70s when they worked it, and it's pretty cool because you get that reminder of what it was like when I was there.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so you worked some more serious details than the beach, right?
Yeah.
What'd you work?
Gangs. I worked 2 gang units. One was called Crash, and then I worked, which is called Detective Support Division Gangs, which was
What did you say?
it was called Detective Support Division Gangs, which we handled a larger percentage of the gang enforcement, and we dealt with bigger gangs like prison gangs and mafia type gangs and stuff like that, as opposed to just street gangs. So
Oh, wow.
we worked that. And
How do you work that? They're in prison.
they get out. They're on parole.
Oh, I
We
see.
work with DAs and parole agents and probation agents and and come on.
And that's called the crash detail?
Crash was more divisional, or bureau-wide. So we'd handle gangs in certain bureaus. When I went to Detective Support Division, we worked gangs within the entire city.
Oh, I see.
And even with prison gangs, they get out of prison. They're still they're not all rehabilitated a lot of the times.
Oh, you don't say.
They come back and sometimes they take up where they left off. So it was the different types of investigations. Like when I was working street gangs and stuff, a lot of times they were doing street sales of narcotics. So you go undercover type of things and make some buys and try to catch them that way. Because if you could stop them doing anything, it's a better chance of maybe not having a murder down the road that weekend. But during the year I was working Crashed, there was having a gang warfare. This is in the '80s, and so you'd have one gang member from this side of the city get killed, and then within a week, another drive-by on the other side of the division. So it was busy, and it was a lot of times it was pretty horrendous because there's a lot of young people. I knew a kid when I was working Crash that was trying to get out of the gangs. He's a young guy. And I would see him, and he stopped me, and he was going to high school, and he showed me his portfolio because he was a sketch artist. He could draw, and I said, "You got a lot of talent there." And he said, "Oh yeah." He says, "My teacher at my high school has got me in this program, so once a week I go over to UCLA, and I have a class there." And he said, "I'm getting credit for that, and whatnot." And he was on his way, and like a week later, we get a call of a drive-by, and he's the deceased.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. So, trying to find ways to eradicate things like that happening, Back then, drive-by shootings were a weekly event.
Oh, my
I don't know
gosh.
if they're occurring at the pace that they were at that time, but yeah.
Wow. That's so disheartening.
Yeah, it is. And it's sad because when you see somebody who actually is trying to move on, but he still has the same friends. He's still hanging out in the same corners. But he could see
He had
potential
promise
within
and
himself.
potential.
Yeah. And so, it's sad. Yeah.
That is, oh, God. Terrible bedtime story. You're making me sad. No, I'm just kidding. It is a true crime podcast. We're talking about true. Did they catch that guy? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I had for breakfast a week ago. So
You and me both. Okay, so we just had to take a little break because there's some music going on next door with the workers. They're getting some construction done and making a mess of my outdoor patio. I'm not going to lie, it's really upsetting me. And then we have sawing on the other side. So if you hear any background noise, and the bugs, we might be swatting some bugs, but we're outside. So roll with it.
Real life.
Be flexible. That's what I've learned, right? So we were back to our, these are first world problems, our bugs, because we were talking about some poor young kid with great promise getting murdered by street violence in LA. Yeah. And now we think that things are horrible right now, which they are. Let's be honest, right? They've basically legalized drugs in LA. It's a shit show there, and it's a shit show here in Orange County. Smash and grabs left and right.
Yeah, I still get the alerts. I don't live here anymore. I still get the alerts, for the news and crime and stuff. And a couple of places I used to go shopping a lot of time, over here in South Coast and whatnot. And it's like, it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's dangerous, right? In Orange County. It used to be the Orange Curtain where you didn't come here to do crime because you'd get this, slammer. You'd be in the slammer. But now, and we still are tough on crime here in Orange County. So don't even think of coming here to commit crimes, because we don't tolerate crime in Orange County.
Rough.
Yes. But I mean, it's way better than LA, but it's ridiculous. So maybe you're glad you moved.
I enjoy it. You know what I do? I'm happy with where I live. I enjoy it. I do miss, there's a lot of things I miss about here, friends and the weather and the beach. But I do like the pace and the gas prices.
Yeah, the gas prices are nice,
and the friendliness of a lot of the folks, there. So it's twofold. All my kids and family and friends are still here. So I come back and visit. And come on my podcast. Okay, so I want to go back to we're not done with you, just so you know. We're not done with all of your awesome things that you did while you were LAPD detective. So you worked all these units, and you're busting, bad guys. And did you go undercover? I did.
You were doing drug buys? I would totally buy drugs from you. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, I got to buy a drug story.
Okay.
So I do a street buy from a guy. I've negotiated larger deals, but I did a street buy from a guy. I bought a small quantity of narcotics. So then go to the prelim over West LA court, and
that place
we're there
was
all day. We are there all day. He's in the courtroom. I'm in the courtroom all day long. I've actually talked to his public defender a little bit, and he was standing there and whatnot. So finally, they get to our case. It's like the last case of the day. Well, that night, we go back out to buy drugs. And I'm driving in a van, and I pull up, and I see somebody kind of down the alley. And I radio, and I said, I think we're going to be made, because this is the guy I was in court with all day. And he walks up to me, and I said, yeah, I need to score a little dope. And he says, don't I know you? I said, yeah, I bought from you before. He goes, oh yeah.
What a dummy. Oh, I love it. You idiot. I was the detective on the case in court this morning. Nice save. Swoop. Nice save, Detective Swoop.
Yeah, it was good. It was fun. Yeah, the thing is I worked a lot of surveillance and undercover buys, but the surveillance of tracking career criminals and things like that. And it's all interesting. It's the type of assignment that you have to enjoy doing it. Otherwise, because some people can't do it. Some people, when it comes to surveillance, you can be sitting in a car for hours with nothing happening. And if you're buying drugs, the risk involved in buying drugs is, it can go bad real quick. So, you either enjoy doing it or you don't, and you gotta listen to that little voice in your head that if this is a bad situation, get out of it. And because I think that's something that's inbred in humans and animals. You detect danger, and if you don't listen to that, things can go bad real quick. And sometimes it's unexpected, but it's the kind of thing where it's not for everybody. But if you enjoy it and you're good at it, then why not give it some time?
And you obviously enjoyed it.
I did. I didn't work any assignment. The thing about working a major department, and I had a guy tell me this years ago when I was applying for law enforcement. I stopped a footbeat officer on Hollywood Boulevard, and I said, "Hey, I was kind of interested in this, that, and other. I'm trying to get on the police department in LA," and he said, "My advice to you is to apply as many departments as you can, so you get used to the testing process, the oral interview process, and whatnot." He says, "Now the benefits of working for a larger department is there's so many different assignments out there," and he says, "Inevitably you're going to work somewhere where your boss doesn't like you, and you can transfer somewhere else within the department." He says, "If you work for a smaller department, you can't do that. There's no place to go hide."
There's no place to hide.
About 10 years later, I said, that guy was really smart, because I need to get out of this division and go somewhere else.
How could somebody not like you? Come on, with that laugh.
It's not for everybody.
You're not for everybody, you mean? I disagree. I think the Martians are listening to you from outer space with your laugh and loving you. So, okay, so you're this badass detective. You're drinking with some underage,
Unknowingly.
allegedly, right? I acted older, right?
You did. You're an old soul.
I'm an old soul. Hey, do you know? I don't know that you know this, but one time at that bar that we used to drink at, I actually got roofied.
Really?
Yeah. I don't remember. I think it was somebody had called me to consult about a case, and there was potential GHB or something involved. And I remembered one night I was there, I'm hoping you guys were going to show up so we could drink and have fun together. And so I was alone at the bar, and I went to the restroom, and it was a local pub, and we trusted everybody there, so, but it was maybe a Friday night, so it was busier than usual.
Yeah.
And this was back in the 1990s. So, 20 something years ago. And I came back, and I wasn't much of a drinker back then. Not that I am now.
Back then?
Back then. No, I really wasn't a big drinker back then. And I took a couple sips of my drink, and I left it on the bar like a dummy.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I started looking around, and they had all those like Bud Light, the neon signs, and they were really blurry. Like my vision started getting blurred, and I started getting a little dizzy, and I thought, oh God, I don't feel good. I'm going to go home.
Yeah.
And I immediately left the bar, and thank God I wasn't followed, but I boot scooted it out of there. I got out of the bar, and I went to go get in my car because I lived like 2 blocks from there. And I woke up, and I was face down in like the parking lot in a ditch. My clothes were all intact, and nothing had happened to me that I'm aware of. But it was a few hours later, and I was laying like behind this car. A car was parked, and I was kind of right there. So maybe whoever drugged me didn't follow me out or couldn't find me because I passed out already, or
she disappeared.
What? She's gone, and they couldn't find me because I was behind this car.
Wow.
But yeah, it was kind of scary.
Yeah. And the thing is too, you talk about bars and people go, oh, well, if you leave, put a napkin over your drink. what does that do? I mean, I guess it's not as easy. But
maybe someone might see you pull your napkin off the drink. How about just don't leave your drink?
Don't leave your drink.
Yeah. Okay, so you finish. When did you end your career as a LAPD detective?
2003.
Okay, so 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
All right, and then what'd you do?
I opened a coffee house.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the coffee house. Where was that at?
In Long Beach.
In Long Beach?
Yeah, I ran a coffee house for a couple of years, and I started a nonprofit.
Did I ever come to your coffee house?
I don't think you did. I think you said you weren't going back into LA County.
No, I lived in Long Beach with you, not with you, but near you for a long time.
For a long time. I passed your old building the other day, actually, matter of fact.
Yeah, we had some fun times in Long Beach.
Yes, we did.
Remember, you took me to all kinds of divey bars.
And we went to a few festivals.
Oh,
I
yes.
got pictures of me.
Yeah, with Jen Contini, we went to that.
Yes.
She's a good buddy, too. We had fun.
Yeah.
So you started a coffee house, opened up a coffee house, and then I did go to the coffee house. I remember it.
I'm just kidding.
I did. Yeah. I did go. I remember.
And you brought a newborn.
Yes. That would have been Nick, because you opened it when, in 03?
Maybe not. I opened it in 06.
Okay, then that was Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I brought my son Nick. Yeah. So you opened the coffee house, and then what happened?
After the coffee house, I started a nonprofit, started an art walk, and then shortly thereafter, I started a podcast.
And that was Swoopsworld.
Swoopsworld. We started in 2009, towards the end of 2009. There was I think the only other podcast we knew of at the time was like Adam Carolla, started that same year. Most people, if I said I have a podcast, I did say, a what? What are you talking about?
I didn't. You invited me on, and I had no idea what it was.
That's why we called it Swoopsworld Radio, because people knew what a radio was.
Yeah, I still don't know how they work. Like, how do you get the music into that little box? I am that uneducated. I just don't understand it. But Yes, I did understand that. So I thought I was on a radio show. I didn't realize it was a podcast.
I told you.
But I know, but I didn't get it. It still didn't register. Now it does. Now I get what a podcast is. But I went there with my friend Hope.
Yes.
You remember that?
I do remember Hope.
And you used to host that like in somebody's house, right? Or
we did
garage?
We did it in my co-host Peter's garage. And we set up, had a banner and whatnot, and we set up. And we had a lot of guests. Over the years, we interviewed, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers and famous DAs and city attorneys and politicians and musicians and authors. We did a lot. We interviewed a lot of people over the years and had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, and you were such a great host of that. I loved it. I had so much fun. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know. I was like,
I think you were on twice, maybe 3 times. Twice for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And we talked about sexual assault and perverts, right?
We did. And you worked so many of those cases, and props to you, because I can work murders and dope dealers and whatnot, and gang members, but sex crimes I have known. I never had any desire to work that.
No desire. It takes a special kind of person to work those cases. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm special. I'm just saying that there has to be something in you that allows you to relate to and understand and not be so freaked out and traumatized by it.
Right.
So, and there's certain cases that like for me, it's weird. I was able to handle the sex crimes. I worked in sex crimes for over 10 years. But if you talk to me about like physical, and I know sexual assault of children is physical, I get that, but like people burning kids with cigarettes or whipping them with, belts and stuff, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I that was one unit I never wanted to work.
Yeah.
Was child abuse. I just didn't want to, even though sexual abuse of children is child abuse in addition to it, but it was a different breed of it. And for some reason I was able to stomach it and do it for so long. And I loved working in that unit.
Yeah.
It made me feel like I had so much purpose because it was just something I related to, having been a victim of sexual abuse myself. And I related to the children, and I thought, you know what? And I'm just going to swear on my own podcast. I thought, fuck these guys. Yeah. I am going all in, and we're going to stick it to them. And I still feel that way today.
Well, I think that's what you have to do, no matter what assignment you have. Like I was talking about, either you're all in on this division and this assignment, or not. And so that's what makes you successful at it and good at what you do. Because if you're working sex crimes and you're not all in on it, as horrible as it is, you're going to screw it up, and then somebody's going to walk. It's one thing to have people walk because of the law, or because even though they committed that crime, it can't be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. It's another thing to have them walk because you messed up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you have to be passionate about it, even though it's a horrible thing that's going on. You have to be passionate about working it to make those things happen,
to make a difference. And sometimes that's what makes all the difference. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, one of the reasons I love bringing on people that are passionate about their jobs and worked really hard and everything, because those are the people that made such a difference. You don't want to just be a soup sandwich in your job, whatever you're doing, especially if you're a DA or a police officer. Like, you got to go the extra step and take those extra measures to make sure that justice is served.
Yeah, and you have to know, it's like Clint Eastwood said in that one movie, you have to know your limitations. It's like, a lot of times people ask me, they say, you retired after like 21 years. I said, yeah. And they said, well, I got a buddy who worked 30 years and this and that. And I said, yeah, but I retired before I got bitter. I retired when I was still enjoying the job, when I when I was happy, and I could see there was, I'd done a whole lot of things but I could see there were some changes coming, that things were happening, politics wise, department wise, whatnot. This is a good time. I was newly married again and whatever. It was a good time for me to retire, right? And I never look back. The things I miss have nothing to do with me wanting to stay in a job. What I miss is the camaraderie. I miss a lot of the friends I worked with. I got together with some of them last week. But, you could stay on something so long where you either become bitter and you don't put the effort in, and you're useless, to the victims out there. So, give it all you got, and then when you don't have it to give anymore, then move on. Right?
Move on. Yeah. I hear you 100%. I don't know if you know this. So I came on your podcast and you were asking me about being a DA in the sex crimes unit. And I talked about my experience and not only, my backstory, but behind why I do what I do or what I was doing then, but also just about predators in general. And, we just talked. We just had a conversation about sexual assault and all these perverts out there and the way they operate and that kind of thing. And you do not know this, but your podcast, me being a guest on your podcast, actually made a huge difference in a case about a pervert that I handled.
Really?
Yeah. It was a case out of Costa Mesa against a priest. There was a priest, Father Lyons, I'll name him because I don't have any problem naming out the perverts. And this is public record, so I'm going to talk about it. But he was actually a prolific child molester in Orange County.
Wow.
And back in, it was, I think in the 80s or in the 1990s, he was arrested and charged with molesting a couple younger boys. And he was actually what's called an ephebophile, right? Most people hear the word pedophile and they know what that is. Right. But a pedophile is a prepubescent, someone who's sexually attracted to prepubescent children. So anywhere from, as young as I've seen people molesting infants, which is tragic, and we should just electrocute them right now. But up to, when they hit puberty. And then there's those that are attracted to post-pubescent children, which are anywhere from whenever you hit puberty on to the age of 18. And so he was an ephebophile. He liked the, teenage boys, basically. And so he was committing these sexual acts, even on some younger children, too. Sometimes these perverts like both.
Now, were these people in his parish or just?
Yeah, they were in his parish, which is despicable. Yeah. But what he would do is send for mail to come. Like, he would have one of the people who work at the church, like a nun, send some boys over to deliver the mail at the rectory where they lived on campus, and then he was molesting them.
Wow.
Yes, he would also commit crimes. It's called crimes of the sacristy, which is like the room that's next to the church where they prepare the sacrament. And so a lot of the younger boys that would come in there, he was committing crimes on those young boys and just doing some atrocious things to young people. But back in the 1990s, they passed a case came down that basically implemented a statute of limitations. So there was a problem with the DA's office going forward with that case, and they had to dismiss the case, which was despicable. Yeah. So he basically, it was public, everybody knew he had been charged with the crime, but it had to be dismissed based on a statute of limitations issue, right. Which a statute of limitations is the time in which the prosecutor has to file the case. And so because this particular case came down, the perpetrator got away. He got away for years. Well, then we had a new victim who was in the statute of limitations who had come forward. And he had some issues, as a lot of victims of sexual abuse do, right? Like, duh. Yeah. And I know the victims themselves often feel like, hey, I've been getting in trouble. I have all these issues. But if you have a good prosecutor, and this goes back to your point about someone who's passionate about their job and someone who takes the extra step. Right. Like some prosecutors might shy away from that. Like, oh, well, the victim has issues. It's like, no shit, they have issues. Yeah. They've been molested and their whole world's been turned upside down. Exactly. So you use those facts in front of a jury as evidence of, yeah, of course they have issues, right? You use it as a piece of evidence that shows, what this sexual assault did to this child, as opposed to that means they're lying. You know, that's the counter argument to the whole thing. And so I was very passionate in that regard. And there was this case that our office, someone else had reviewed it and they thought, I don't think we can prove this. And it was against the same priest. And so I met with this victim. I was asked to take a look at it. They wanted a fresh set of eyes to look at this case and see if you agree with this prosecutor's decision that we shouldn't go forward on this case.
Right.
And one of the things was he had civilly sued the church previously, and that was going to come up. Right. But I'm like, he should sue the church.
Exactly.
Right. Like that's not a negative, but he had a family member who had also been victimized by a different priest. But that was the fact that gave him the courage to come forward, was that his family member had been abused and they had come forward, and it kind of gave him the courage to come forward. But like this victim, maybe he had Googled it, but we had other victims of him.
Right.
Of the same perpetrator, right? So, and I always say this, when you're talking about perverts and pedophiles and child molesters and rapists, they're all the same. They're all perverts. And they all are vermin, okay? If you're molesting or children or raping women, and that's just me, Heather Brown, talking, and I'm hopeful everyone who's not a molester agrees with me. But, what was I even saying? Where I went on a rant about these molesters. Yeah, where there's one, there's more. That was my whole point. Where there is one, there is always more. And so we had all of these other people that he had gotten away with molesting. And now I had one victim who was in the statute of limitations, and he had some issues. Mm-hmm. He did. He had some issues. He lied about a prior conviction in a deposition. And it was... It made him look bad. It did, right? And so, you know, when you're going forward and you have one victim, they've sued the church, which is going to come out, and they lied previously. They're going to look like they're just looking for money and everything. And so I needed some corroboration. I needed to find some corroboration. And we had another victim who, under what's called Evidence Code 1108, which is prior bad acts, basically, the evidence code allows for you to bring in, you as a prosecutor, to bring in uncharged victims to testify that, hey, this guy did this to me too. And it's very powerful evidence that the jury can consider. It's called propensity evidence, basically. Right. Very powerful evidence. And that's why one of the things I would encourage anyone who's a victim of sexual assault, even if you think your case is outside of the statute of limitations, there are evidence code sections that allow us, to resurrect old cases if we have multiple victims, but more importantly, we as prosecutors, and I know I'm not a prosecutor, but in my heart I am, so I still talk like I am, but the DA's office can use prior uncharged acts. So that means even if your case wasn't filed, even if your case can't be filed, if it's not too remote, which means years and years ago, the prosecutor can make a motion to bring that evidence into a current case against the same perpetrator. And it's very, very powerful, very, very powerful evidence that the prosecutor can use. And so there is a reason for you to report if you've been a victim of sexual abuse. And this goes back to my whole point about you and your podcast was, I had a victim who had been victimized by the same priest, and I even drove out to the middle of nowhere. I think he lived in like Murrieta or something. I drove out there with my investigator to meet with him, and I asked him if he would be willing to come and testify, even though we couldn't charge his case. And he turned me down. Yeah. He did. He turned me down. He said, I want to help you, Heather, I want to help you, but I just can't do it. I don't want to go through that again. And I said, I respect that, and I respect you, and I'm really sorry this happened to you, and we left. And he called me, I think it was 2 days later, and said, you know what, I did some researching on you, and I listened to a podcast you did on Swoopsworld. Really? Yes, he did. He said, I listened to he didn't call it a podcast, but I listened to Swoopsworld. Yeah. I heard you, and I trust you. And I'm going to do this. I'll testify for you. And so he did. He was willing to testify for the prosecution, and ultimately that priest ended up taking a plea deal. But he didn't even have to come to court. But the other side knew we got another guy to come in and testify. Yeah. And so it was really important that you had me on that show, because we were able to get a rotten, dirty pervert, who's now registered as a sex offender and pled guilty to, committing a lewd act on a child. And I was up against a wall, right? Because, when the defense's star witnesses are none, and your victim has maybe told a lie or two, like, it's a problem.
That's really good to hear, because, when we started that podcast, our goal was to highlight our city, highlight individuals that were doing good things, and try to make a difference in any way we could. It wasn't just strictly for entertainment. It's got to be entertaining, but it wasn't strictly for entertainment. And so to hear that something like that happened, that kind of gives us, validates what we wanted to do. And I'm glad it worked out. Yeah, no, it was wonderful. Yeah.
I thought it was, I didn't know that people were, Googling that and listening, but and it was really important.
When I go back and I haven't checked, I get an email with some statistics from one platform that we're on still, but when I go back and search statistics, your episode was always one of the top. It was in the top 5, always, consistently.
I'm top 5.
Who
beat me out?
Number of listens.
Some boring. No.
So it was good. I mean, and what you had to talk about. I mean, it's the type of thing that people don't know if they want to hear about, but when they hear about it, it kind of, nobody wants to know that these things are going on. But you want to know that somebody's out there fighting for it. And, I think it also brings up a lot of things. I'll hear people say things. Okay, you're talking about statute of limitations and things like that. And I know victims get questioned a lot about whether or not they're really a victim and whatnot. And I think a lot of times when, and I understand why people don't want to go to the police and whatnot, and be, looked at and,
scrutinized.
Scrutinized, right?
Yeah.
But then you'll hear, well, they're on TV filing a lawsuit from something that happened to them, years ago, but they never went to the police. And I don't know if they can't go to the police now because of the statute of limitations. Like you'll hear let's talk about Gloria Allred. I have some women on from talking about Diddy or something like that, and some of those people never filed a crime report. And I wonder, and I'm not saying that they're lying. I mean, I believe it. I believe them. But I think a lot of times people wonder, is there a reason that they're not filing a crime report? You have an attorney now, right? And I know it's a civil attorney, but wouldn't they encourage them to file a crime report? Or maybe they do, but is it because of statute of limitation? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, interestingly enough, my thoughts are you should absolutely 100% go and file a report. And if the police officer tries to dissuade you from filing a report, ma'am, this happened 30 years ago, you realize they're going to drag you through the ringer. I hear that, and it upsets me. It actually pisses me off when I hear police officers trying to dissuade victims from reporting something. And even if it's outside of the statute of limitations, you are documenting that, so there is a record that you reported it. And I have many, many cases where just that thing happened, where your crime report today, right? If you report today, like maybe it's outside of the statute of limitations, but there's always changes in the law, and there's always an opportunity down the road where we might not be able to charge your case today, but once we get corroboration from someone else who is unrelated to you, who doesn't, you guys don't know each other, we call that corroboration.
And now you have it documented.
And now it's documented. Right. You reported this 10 years ago that this pervert was doing this. Yeah. And it's so critically important. Even if the law enforcement tells you there's nothing we can do, it's outside of the statute of limitations, it doesn't matter, because where there is one, there are always more. There will be more people, especially if they got away with it with your crime, because that only emboldens these perverts to do it again. And so if you report it, he's going to do it again. And I say he, but there are a couple she's. There are a couple she's that I've seen.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm calling out my next podcast guest, Beth Costello Carmichael. I know you got married, and I'm not sure which, I think you went back to your maiden name, but Beth Costello, I want you on my podcast to talk about Sheila Seacat, but who is a woman who was participating in some of the most horrendous, despicable crimes imaginable. So there are women out there, but they're mostly men. You perverts. No, I'm just kidding. Not really. But anyway.
There are some sick individuals.
There's some sick individuals out there.
And I don't think a lot of people, you talk to just the general public, and, people always want to find the good in people. Some people there's just no good in, right? Some people are just evil. And whether you get them all the counseling in the world or put them incarcerate them forever and then let them back out, there are people. I mean, I interviewed some of these people when I visited prisons. And there's some people that's what they do. They are evil individuals, and they commit horrendous crimes. I'm not talking about property crimes. I'm talking about horrendous crimes against other people, and they're consistently going to do it, and there's not going to be any change in their world. That's I don't know what's wrong upstairs.
Oh, there's something wrong.
But that's what they do.
I had a boss, Ted Burnett was a boss of mine from years ago at the DA's office. And he, when talking about sexual assault, he would always say, they just have green worms in their head. And that always stuck with me. Yeah. It's like they have green worms in their head. Yeah. For you to think that the child is somehow sexually attractive in any way, shape, or form, you got something wrong and you need some serious help or to be locked up and incarcerated. I actually had a pervert one time. He was volunteering at like a Sunday school type of thing. And he came and he turned himself in to the pastor and to the police. And he told the police, I have been coming up with reasons to spank the children in the Sunday school. And then I go home and masturbate thinking about it. And where I am right now in my head, like that's what I'm obsessed about and focused on. And I know this is terrible and horrible and sinful. And I don't want to do anything else to another child. So like, do whatever you have to do with me, lock me up. Like I couldn't believe that, but he turned himself in. And that's kind of where it starts, with people doing like just a little this. And these kids didn't even know they were being victims of sexual abuse, right. But yeah.
I think a lot of times with criminals, they start and they do things and they do things and they do things. And a lot of times, even things that people recognize, they give them a pass. Oh, he's 15, he doesn't know any better. Oh, he's growing pains and this. No, you need to nip this right now because bad things are going to happen down the road.
If that's what you're capable of 15, capable of doing at 15, imagine when you're 20, 30, 40 years old. Yeah, no, it's terrible. So, I mean, what a great message. I mean, not a great message. That was a horrible message, but I mean, a horrible story. But like, and what you were saying about these kinds of cases is no one wants to hear about them, but they do. Yeah. When I'll be at, cocktail parties and be like, oh, what are you working on? And I'm like, well, I got this guy who's been raping a 3-year-old. They're like, okay, you need to stop talking.
We're done.
But there are a lot of, stories. People need to know that this is out there and this is happening and that they need to, sleep with one eye open and be vigilant and, learn and know about how to keep your children safe and how to, keep your daughters and your sons safe when they go away to college. And there's things that we can do as parents to guard against that kind of stuff. And it's important.
I think a lot of people know these things, but they make jokes about them. They go, oh, everybody's got that creepy uncle. No.
Yeah.
You don't need to have the creepy uncle babysit your kid. Why do you do that? Why do you know somebody is odd? Let's go with odd.
Yeah, odd. We'll call him odd.
Yeah, who's a little different. Mm-hmm. And you're gonna put people you love. You're going to expose them to that person. Now if that person shows up at every family gathering, everybody needs to keep an eye on them. I mean, sometimes I know that's the thing, because mom's going to always invite her son, and you're like, well, my brother's a nutball, whatever. keep the kids away from them type of thing. And then people, they're drinking, having a good time, and they all of a sudden, where is it? And then that's when something happens, right?
Yep.
So,
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Yeah. There's a lot of things because let's be honest, the majority of these sexual assaults that we're talking about happen in families. Yeah. It's not the creepy, scary guy in the van that's, we teach our kids stranger danger, right? And watch out for the guy who's giving free candy or puppies and in the scary, creepy rape van. But that's not who's molesting children. It's generally someone that you trust, and you love. And you can't teach your kids, like, watch out for your grandpa and your uncle and your cousin and your brother's friend who sleeps over at the sleepover. But, it's usually someone that and you love and you trust that's molesting, whether it's a teacher, a coach. And so you as, family members, as parents, as uncles, as brothers, have to be on alert for the creepy guy.
Yeah. I've talked to so many different people over the years, especially women, who will tell me, oh yeah, I had this uncle who did this, or we were worried about because he would, be a little handsy or this and that, and I got the grandpa or whatever. And a lot of times, I think, the whole stranger danger thing, I think a lot of times they're like, especially periods, like in the 70s, there was a lot of guys picking up hitchhikers and stuff like that. Well, most people aren't hitchhiking anymore. So yeah, excuse me. I think
now they're Ubering, and you got to watch out for the Uber guy raping you.
Uber driver. I've seen some crazy stuff about that. But I think all through time, it's a lot of it has done with people that people that you trust, like you say, teachers, priests, family members, people that have already gained your trust, coaches. And take your kid away to camp for the weekend or the month or whatever. You got to watch out. You got to know who's around. And I guess a parent can't be there all the time. But the more you're invested, I think a lot of these people look for people who don't have that connection with their parents, or their parents aren't that involved. I'm not saying I know that 100%, but I think it's not scientific. But I think a lot of these people, I think they realize, oh, you know what, dad's not around that much. Or their mom's divorced, and so I'm going to be the father figure, coach kind of guy, and kind of weasel the way in. And these guys, you can see that if you kind of know who they are and not know necessarily what they do or what they're doing, you could see who they're attracted to each time. They're attracted to somebody who's got a son or a daughter of a certain age and whatnot, and that's who they always are dating. And I think they're worming their way. Not everybody, but a lot of times when you find out after the fact, this is kind of their pattern, that they worm their way into these people's lives to be around their kids.
Yeah, 100%. They gain access. They seek opportunities to gain access to children. Yeah. And so whether it's the single mom or and let's be honest, most parents have to work, right? We have the mom and the dad out working. So when the coach offers to bring your kid to the practice, you're like, heck yeah, like that'll help me a lot. And they know that. So what the perverts do is they seek opportunities, they seek jobs in areas where they can have access to children. So that's why you see it, right? If they don't have their own children to molest, or they've already molested them and they've aged out, now they have to find people of their own age, the age group of which they like. So they will seek opportunities of employment in either, as a soccer coach, football coach, a teacher, a youth pastor, where they can gain access at some camp. And that's how they, are able to have access to our children. So we have to be just aware of it and alert and, and
then criminals, they have a pattern. I remember talking to a guy years and years ago who did a lot of residential burglaries. And he said to us that he would go and kind of knock on the door and see anybody home. Kind of, that was his thing. But if he saw a "Beware of Dog" sign, or if he heard a dog, he could just skip that house. He said, "Why have to deal with that?" He said, even if it's whatever. He goes, I can. There's so many houses available that was his MO. If it was a dog there, move on. Right? It's just because he didn't need the barking. It alert the neighbors or whatnot. He goes, I just move on, and so people talk about, well, they need this great alarm system. A lot of times, if you have a guy like that case in your neighborhood, all you need is a dog, right? I mean, you got to feed it and got to deal with it, but you know what I'm saying? They all have patterns, no matter what their crimes are.
They have patterns.
Whether they're bank robber, I had a funny bank robber story. Whether
Tell us. No. Tell us your funny bank robbery story. I want to hear it.
Okay, so I'm working at a specialized unit one time, and because there was a lot of bank robberies handling in this one area, and because at that time, Los Angeles was the bank robbery capital of the world. And they think that was because of the access to freeways. So it's easy getaway, right?
Yeah.
Pull a job, jump on the freeway, you're 4 cities over in 5 minutes.
That's why there's no crime in Malibu. I went to law school in Malibu. It was amazing. There was no crime. And I even went on some ride-alongs, and they're like, yeah, there's no crime here. No, we chased one guy on a motorcycle because he was speeding down PCH. And I was like, why is that? And because there's one road in and one road out. And the criminals know, like, all they have to do is put up a blockade at the end of PCH, and I'm busted. So
you're done.
So LA, that makes sense. Yeah. There's all these streets and freeways, and they can get away easy.
Easy.
Okay.
So we got a call, a bank robbery just occurred. So we get there, and they give a description of the two guys, right? And so we're driving around because, the FBI comes and handles those. So we're just driving around, and all of a sudden I see the two guys that fit the description walking out of a Shakey's Pizza, Straw Hat Pizza, whatever, and get into a cab. I said, I think that's them. So we pull them over. And so now I'm talking to the one guy for hours because, we got a booking process and everything. He says, I knew we were going to get caught today. I said, why? He says, because he had an MO. He says, I usually pull my jobs by myself. And he says, look at me. And he had a nice suit on. He goes, look at me. And he says, you see the guy, his suit was all wrinkled and whatnot. We stuck out. He said, here's what I usually do. He says, I know the bus schedule. He says, I hit a bank at a certain time. I'd get out. I'd head up the block, jump on the bus, go 2 stops, get off, boom. And he said, many times I see the police cars going opposite directions. I'm leaving. He said, when this fool, he says, we should kill time at the pizza place, which was only like 4 blocks from where they were at the bank. And then they get into the cab and pull off and go, right? And so we get the money stuffed underneath the seat and stuff. So after I had the interview and everything, so I'm booking him. And so during the booking process, there's a lot of questions you ask, your date of birth, blah, 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 where do you live, places you hang out, occupation. I get to occupation. He stands up, he adjusts his tie, and he says, bank robber.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
That's hilarious. I started laughing. I said,
at least he's honest.
He said, this is what I do.
Okay. I have to tell you one little funny story about that. There's this judge in Orange County. Anyone who's in Orange County is listening knows Judge Fitzgerald is his name. And I love Fitz. But if he didn't like your case, he would just give it away for nothing. But if he didn't like the crime, that guy was getting the maximum. I loved it. But I loved it when he loved my crime that I brought before him. But he took a ton of pleas one day, and he gave this bank robber who had like 15 priors he struck all the strikes. He gave him some ridiculous deal, right? Like, I don't even know, like 6 years for 8 new bank robberies, and he had strike priors, so he could have gotten 25 to life. Yeah. And he says to the criminal, sir, the DA's upset with me about giving you this plea deal. She thinks that when you get released, since I'm going to, give you a determinate sentence rather than 25 to life, she thinks you're going to go out there and rob some more banks. And then he says, so in the event that happens, I bank at Bank of America, so try to stick to Wells Fargo, would you? And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Anyway, I couldn't help but laugh, but please don't rob any banks.
Some of those judges are hilarious.
I know.
I was in juvenile court years ago in Inglewood, and I forgot the judge's name, who eventually became mayor of Inglewood. But he was no joke, right? And so it wasn't even my case. I'm listening to him talk. So he has his kid come up before him, and he says, he asked him, is your mom there? Bring her up, this, that, and the other. And bottom line is, he told him he was going to camp. And the kid starts crying. He says, what did I tell you last time you were here? I told him, you go to school, keep your grades up, and if you didn't, He says, I told you to bring your toothbrush because we're canceling Christmas.
Oh my God.
And then the mom started to say something. He goes, well, you're part of the problem. It's like, and I'm thinking that kid that I'm here with, he's got to be like, if he's watching this, right? You figure when you're not the one that's up there, you're like, your case hasn't been called yet, and you start seeing stuff like that, I don't know what's going through your head.
You're like, oh my God.
I'm so screwed.
I'm next. I'm so screwed. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, what a fun time it has been to have you here with us today. What are you doing now? I forgot to ask you. I'm so lame. What are you doing now?
What am I doing
besides
now?
being retired and having fun with your life?
Yeah,
are you doing anything exciting? Is there anything we need to plug for you?
No, not yet. I'm almost there. I used to do a lot of art, so I'm kind of doing my art thing again, getting some paintings taken care of and whatnot.
Speaking of which, you were asking me about the artwork for the podcast, and did you see that?
I did see
you
that.
You loved it, right?
I did love that.
It was amazing. The artist's name is Gabe Leonard. And he's got some of the coolest, most badass art you could ever see. You can see him at Distinction Galleries. His artwork is fantastic. Gabe Leonard, he is amazing. I want to give a shout out. I'm going to give a couple shout outs, okay? I'm going to give a shout out to my amazing producer, Pete Campbell, from More Creatives, who is just making me look fabulous every chance he gets and sound wonderful. And he sets up the stage and this, our whole set, and he's fantastic. So if you're interested in doing your own podcast, reach out to More Creatives. And I got to tell you, the music, the intro music, okay, about being the light, is from his son, Jaden, who is 14 years old. He's a high school student, and he created that song and wrote the lyrics for me. Thank you, Jaden. Shout out to you. And tell me, what can I promote for you? Because you're awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. We'll stay in touch. When I ask something to really promote, I will let you know. And I'm just coming back. I tore a bunch of ligaments, and I haven't done anything for like a year, so I'm just getting back out there and doing stuff. So
okay, well, I want to encourage you to get back on to Swoopsworld, because people want to hear from you.
Well, thank you.
I want to hear more from you, and I will follow, like, subscribe, and everything like I'm asking you to do if you like this podcast and want to hear more fabulous guests. We are on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. You can watch it on iTunes. No, you can watch it on YouTube and Spotify. You can listen on the rest of them. So please give us a follow. And until the next time, if you can't find the light, be the light.